In today's world, people are having to work harder than ever to achieve their goals in the face of greater competition and mountainous financial obstacles. And nowhere is it more obvious than with our children, some of whom are already overachievers at the age of 3. But in our quest to do the best for our children, are we falling into common parenting traps, and are they burning our children out? Our creative parenting expert, Nikki Bush, is here to provide some solutions. Nikki, good morning. So good to have you here.
Thanks, Leigh-anne.
So the question we're asking this morning, are our children suffering from burnout, and what are the symptoms of burnout?
I think, you go back to our day when we were kids, and it was the burnout was what the chief executive in the corner office went through. And we are starting to see it in our children, unfortunately. Wow. We're seeing preschoolers, we're seeing primary school children becoming very irritable, ratty, over-emotional, crying at the drop of a hat, with little resilience and resourcefulness for any kind of pressure whatsoever. They're tired, they have sleep problems, and these are things that were in the realm of the adult world. So what is actually happening to our children? And there are reasons for this. And if you look at children today, and one of the things that I ask parents is, do your children have any time to play?
Wow.
And do you have time to play with them?
Wow. That's quite important, and I think it's such an important thing to think about, because like you said, when you come from a different generation, you might think, oh, you don't know what it was like for us. But the dynamics have changed. Every generation deals with a different kind of dynamic. What are the consequences, though, of burnout?
Okay, so as I've mentioned, lack of resourcefulness and resilience. So we're looking for children who need to be very creative and come up with original thoughts to solve big problems in the world. And yet you send your children off to their rooms to play, and they come back and they say, I'm bored, because they don't get enough time to play. They are being overscheduled in terms of how many extramural activities they're doing. Already we're seeing 4- and 5-year-olds doing between 5 and 7 extramurals a week. Often they're scheduled into an extramural every single afternoon in a weekday, sometimes 2. And then children in primary school as well are going through a heavy day at school, then they have extramurals in the afternoon, and then you add in private coaching after that.
Wow.
And often children are not getting home much before between 5 and 7 at night, depending on what they're doing. And we have to be a little bit aware of the fact that children are children. And while we do need to expose them to things and enable them to discover their talents, there is that FOMO, that fear of missing out, that parents are feeling. What if I don't uncover all my child's talents by the time they're 8? Then what are we going to do? Will my child be disadvantaged? And I think we have to rethink what it means to be successful and what our children need in order to be successful. A lot of what is going to help our children in that world of work unfolds quietly in the confines of the home, the garden, when your child has time to explore and discover for themselves. And a nice example that I have is with my child Matthew, who's now 14, but when he was about 10, he's always the child who wants to have a friend round to play. And it was on a weekend, and he wanted to know who was coming to play, and I said, no, well, nobody's coming today. And the sort of face fell, but then he got out his Scalextric set. And he started building, and he spent hours building. And I could see he was going into another world because he had time to be creative. And not only that, when it got to the end of his play session, we got into the car to go and do some shopping. And he said, Mum, next time I do this, I'm going to get out my big piece of paper, and I'm going to plan what I'm going to build on paper before I build it.
Wow.
Now, for me, that as a mother gave me insight into how he thinks.
Nikki, quickly before we have to end, how does a parent find that balance, though?
It really is about tuning into your child. Some children can cope with a lot of extramural activities and they thrive on it. So look at your child's behavior, and other children just fall apart. I have 2 boys, and they are completely different. One child could do way more and cope with way more than another child. So really tune into your child's behavior. Those things that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if they're melting down, take a step back and just have a look. Are they doing too much? Once again, do they have time for play dates? Do they have time to play, and are you ever playing with your children?
Wow. Well, there you have it. If you are a parent who is maybe finding so much that you've learned from this, then hopefully you've gotten a few interesting and helpful tips. Find the balance between work and play. I think it's definitely going to make sure that our children are a lot happier.